Hey guys, welcome back. So today I'm going to be talking about the clean finish seam. I'll show you guys how to create a clean finish seam sample, but before I do that, let's talk about what it is and why you'd even want to learn to create a clean finish seam. So basically, a clean finish seam is a very simple but professional way to give your garments that polished look, that professional tailored look. If you've ever admired like the inside of a tailored dress or an unlined jacket, you've probably seen this technique. Instead of serged edges, which can look kind of cheap and just not that professional looking, you don't want to look at serged edges. You notice that the seam is very clean. There's nothing, you can't tell the edges, you don't see any raw edges. So here I have that sample that we're going to be creating in this video. So the most common places you're going to see this is going to be an unlined jacket, a tailored dress, really nice fine blouses. You could even find this in an unlined skirt, for example. So next time when you're out shopping, see if you can find a garment with a clean finish. If it has that clean finish, you know it was really made with quality. Usually, again, you'll find it in a tailored dress, unlined jackets, etc. So look for those types of garments to see if you can find or identify that clean finish seam. So let's talk about I'm going to give you an overview of how we're going to create this. And then I'm going to walk through step by step of creating the sample. So first of all, you have your garment pieces. The first step is to stitch the plain seam with your right sides of your fabric facing each other, right sides facing. And then you'll sew your normal 5/8 seam allowance, plain seam. Once you've sewn your 5/8 seam allowance, you'll press it open. After you press it open, you'll take that seam and you'll press in about 1/4 of an inch of that seam allowance under. Once you've pressed it, you'll go back to your machine and you'll stitch all the way down on each end, and you won't catch the face of the fabric. You're only going to sew the seam allowance. Really simple to create, and it gives a beautiful, beautiful clean finish. And you don't need a serger. So next time you're making something, if you think, oh, I need a serger, not really. You can do this on lightweight woven fabrics. You can even do this on medium weight fabrics. I probably wouldn't do it on very heavy or bulky fabric. We'll go over a different type of finish that you can do on bulkier fabric in another video called a Hong Kong seam finish. But you can always work around that serging edges on woven fabrics with these other ways of finishing your seam. So this is one called a clean seam finish. So let's go over and create our sample. Okay, so here we are at the machine. I've got my 2 pieces of fabric, right sides facing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch this at the 5/8 seam allowance here. And this is very lightweight fabric, so I'm going to be very careful and make sure you back stitch at the beginning and at the end. We have our 5/8 seam allowance here. Hopefully you guys can see that. So we're going to go to our iron, press this open, and then come back here, and we're going to clean finish the seam. Okay, once we have pressed that seam open, we're going to take one side of the seam and only the seam, nothing else. And we're going to fold it under about 1/4 of an inch or so. We just want to hide that raw edge. And I'm going to place it under my machine and get as close as I can to the edge so that I can actually get the stitching of that edge. And I'm just going to back stitch in the beginning and back stitch at the end. We can do this since you don't really see this on the outside, and just to kind of reinforce this seam finish. Okay, there's one side. Now we're going to repeat the same thing on the other side of the seam. So fold it under about 1/4 of an inch and then place it under your presser foot, and just, you can use the inside or just before the outside of this foot to kind of guide your seam. Again, back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Okay, and there is my completed clean finish seam. All right, guys, so this wraps up our clean seam finish sample. Again, I highly recommend that you guys go out, when you go shopping, look for these things, because these do help you to see if a garment is made professionally, basically. If it's cheap and quick, usually woven fabrics will just have serged edges. But if you find woven fabrics with things like a clean seam finish, it's a little bit more professional. They took a little bit extra time and it looks better, right? So look at the seam finishes on garments next time. Even if you're not learning how to sew, I hope these techniques are teaching you to identify certain things on garments and decide, base your buying purchase on, is this a good quality garment? How long is this gonna last me? This is definitely a better quality than a serged edge. So if you find something with a clean finish seam, like a fine blouse, a nice tailored dress, and you like the garment, I would prefer that over a serged edge personally. And when I make my own clothes, I always choose a little bit higher quality seam finish on my own garments, especially if it's something I'm making that I want to last a long time. All right, hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel so that I can continue making these videos, and hope to see you guys in the next video. Ciao.